No one knew what Ruth Hana was doing when she'd jump into a dumpster and pull out cans, only to pull the pop tabs off and throw the cans back in the trash. She was a 91-year-old woman. It was odd, to say the least. Little did these people know that Ruth's collection would help and change many lives. When Ruth dug through the trash and hopped into dumpsters without a second thought, onlookers were confused about her intentions. The 91-year-old wasn't homeless, and people around town knew who she was. Yet no one thought to stop and ask the older lady what she was doing. They'd soon find out. Each day, Ruth made it her mission to sift through as much garbage as she could. Her hope was to find cans, soup, soda, or other food that had a pop tab. No one knew why the older lady was so hyper-focused on finding these tabs, and Ruth didn't humor them with the why, since no one asked. This wasn't a new development. Townspeople watched the elderly woman for years as she hopped into dumpsters and searched through others' trash. They were confused, and some were even grossed out. However, Ruth knew what she was doing and why she was doing it. But before we start, smash the like button, subscribe, and don't forget the notification bell so you never miss any of our upcoming stories. Ruth had no issues with people staring at and judging her. She'd been alone most of her life and was used to the leering. Even so, she was oddly thankful for her lonely years growing up. Anything different, and Ruth wouldn't be the person who jumped into dumpsters. And for a good reason. Even though Ruth knew what she was doing was important and would pay off in the end, it didn't stop people from giving her disapproving looks. Some even went as far as to tell her, "You're too old to be doing anything like this." Comments like that made the 91-year-old shake her head. Just because she was old didn't mean she had to sit around all day doing nothing. Eventually, Ruth moved out of her home and into a retirement house. The facility was nice, and the staff was understanding when Ruth brought along her large collection of tabs. She was grateful they allowed her collection, as it was against the rules to have so much clutter in a room. While the retirement home was comfortable, the 91/60 years old missed going out. She missed her freedom. Just because she was confined to the home's grounds didn't mean she was going to give up her mission. Each day, Ruth would go through the trash, collecting more and more tabs. At the end of the day, she'd sit in her room and count all of the tabs she'd collected before adding them to the boxes, jugs, and other holding containers she had littered over her room. Just as the townsfolk were, the workers and residents of the retirement home were confused as to why the 91-year-old was so fascinated with collecting pop tabs. Ruth was eager to get to 1 million pop tabs. When she finally found the last one to add to her collection, everyone at the retirement home gathered around to witness her success. Even while they were cheering her on, the onlookers were more than eager to learn what it was all for. Still, Ruth didn't tell anyone what the huge collection was for, or why she'd went through all that trouble to find the tabs. It had taken years. She wasn't about to brag about it. But after all the judgment and mean looks, she'd finally completed her mission and was ready to hand the tabs off. All Ruth did was smile at her collection. Then, she went back to her room, put on her shoes, and grabbed a jacket. Afterward, she asked the retirement home staff if they'd help load the boxes of pop tabs into the facility's van. They were eager to help, if for no other reason than the clutter would finally be gone. But they were still curious as to why, after all this time, she wanted rid of the tabs. It seemed like the bits of metal were important to the lady. Why would she give them up? View from the back seat of an Uber vehicle. The driver is staring ahead through the windscreen, with a cell phone propped up next to the steering wheel. Once all of the tabs were in the van, Ruth handed the driver a tiny piece of paper. It had an address written on it, and soon, Ruth's actual mission with her collection would be complete. Along with 2 staff members, the driver took off to the address, wondering what was in store when they got there. The driver pulled up in front of a large building. Everyone was confused as to why they were there. Well, everyone except Ruth. The 91-year-old had made an appointment and knew they were expecting her. That's when a man dressed in a suit walked out the front door, walked to the van, and inquired about if she was Ruth. He took her hand and said, "Mrs. Hana, so great to finally meet you." The man got very emotional once he saw the sheer number of pop tabs the 91-year-old had brought along. As it turns out, Ruth was donating her entire collection to the Ronald McDonald House Charity, which helps facilitate programs for families with children in need, namely, those with an illness. The question, though, was why? As it turned out, this wasn't the first time Ruth had taken it upon herself to help those in need. She often donated to charity, and she helped out where she could. The Ronald McDonald House, however, held a special place in her heart. She held the organization close because of her own childhood. Ruth grew up an orphan and never knew the comfort of having someone around when she was lonely, scared, or sick. As such, she wanted to ensure no child would ever feel that way and began collecting tabs to help the nonprofit organization. It still begs the question, why did Ruth take it upon herself to collect 1 million pop tabs? What could they possibly be used for to help children? Well, the Ronald McDonald House charity actually collects pop tabs. By themselves, the aluminum tabs aren't worth very much, but when you add together the 1 million Ruth brought in, they equate to a pretty penny. The charity collects the tabs and brings them to a local recycling plant, where they're traded in for money. These funds go toward facility expenses, support programs, and to help sponsor programs. The Ronald McDonald House charity is highly regarded. When asked about the organization, one of the residents at Ruth's retirement home spoke very highly of it, explaining, "They operate totally on volunteers and donations, and when you look at what Ronald McDonald House does, it makes you look beyond yourself to help somebody else." They then spoke about Ruth and her mission. It is giving her something to do. She feels like she is contributing, and it is important for an older person to have a purpose in life, a reason. It is important as you get older to look beyond yourself, they said. Speaking to a Milwaukee news station, Ruth joked about her dumpster diving and why she finds it so important to give back to the community. She said, "I know when I went to Miller Park, it's really funny. Sometimes I would almost fall down into those dumpsters." Even so, she always knew there was extreme value in what she was doing. Ruth continued in the interview, explaining what it was like to grow up in an orphanage without a family. She shared, "Christmas would come, and I would cry that I had nobody to celebrate with. My birthday came and passed, same thing. It's not what you get, it's what you give that counts." Ruth actually spent most of her adult life helping children, something that became abundantly clear when she and the staff returned to the retirement home. There, the 91 years old showed the staff her various certificates and thank you letters from over the years. She had made so many donations to charities that the city even declared a Ruth Hana Day on 12 separate occasions. However, Ruth wasn't in it for the recognition. She just wanted to make sure the children were as comfortable as possible, so she hid the letters in a box under her bed. She wasn't one to show off. Giving back was all Ruth wanted to do, regardless of if people recognized her work or not. After finding out Ruth was collecting the pop tabs for charity, the entire retirement home decided to join in on her cause. Eventually, they began collecting tabs. One staff member said, "I'm sort of amazed at how these tabs have taken off. It has gone out into the community, and I'm just tickled that Ruth has gotten into this. It has given her something to do and made her feel useful." Even after donating her collection to the Ronald McDonald House charity, Ruth didn't stop. After transferring the pop tabs, she was back hopping into dumpsters, searching for more whenever she had the chance. She's an amazing example of doing something so simple to help children in need. Even though Ruth grew up never knowing what it was like to have a family, she has since made her own. Those who benefited from her generosity have wanted to meet their guardian angel. According to Ruth, the mothers are just overwhelmed. They're kind of my family. With Ruth's focused attitude, and now the help of her fellow retirement home residents, she was able to collect more and more pop tabs. The sheer amount of help allowed Ruth to make more frequent donations to the Ronald McDonald House charity. Needless to say, no one was about to give Ruth another weird look when she hopped into a dumpster to search for cans. Thank you for watching. If you like this story, don't forget to hit the like button, subscription, and ring the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming stories.